Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guest today is Dr. Gerald Lynch, who is the president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice, one of the colleges of the City University, and he has been the president since 1976. John Jay College of Criminal Justice specializes in law enforcement, and criminal justice, and law-related issues. And therefore, it's a very unusual college, not just for the City University, but a very unusual college at all to be a part of any university. Dr. Lynch, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Now, tell us about John Jay and what is meant by criminal justice.
Right. Well, John Jay really came out of the crisis of the 60s, the ferment that went on in America, in Watts, in Detroit, in Newark, the blow-ups, the riots, and the presidential commissions that resulted from that said that police were as much of anybody to blame for the problems, and that police should be professionalized. They should be given a 4-year degree. Every police officer in America, they said, the Kerner Commission and others said, and therefore John Jay was founded by then Mayor Wagner, Commissioner Adams, and Chancellor Bowker, who felt that a separate college which would do that, would help professionalize police, was necessary.
Now, since that time, how many students who have gone into the police department in New York City have graduated from John Jay?
Probably about 20,000 over the past 35 years.
Okay, now, you know, we are really back in the 1960s, in 1999, right. Because, as you know, there have been huge demonstrations about attacking the police department, and we have any number of lawsuits, and Attorney General Eliot Spitzer has, in effect, charged by documented material that the police department tend to search blacks and Hispanics more than any other group in the city of New York. And you have written a book on human dignity and the police. Yes. Why have not the problems with the police department eased in the past 30 years?
Well, there's many answers, I think, to that, but one answer, in my judgment at least, is that the Mullen Commission, which was named for Judge Mullen, and about 5 years ago, recommended that there be a police authority over the police department that would receive complaints, would really be a monitoring board. The New York Times came out and supported it. I supported it. Peter Vallone supported it. The City Council, the mayor and the governor, the mayor and the police commissioner did not. They felt that it was not necessary. Every 20 years we had the Knapp Commission. We've had corruption commissions.
What about the Civilian Complaint Review Board? Why doesn't that do the job?
I think because in some people's minds it does the job, but in many people's minds it doesn't, because it does report to the police department. It is not totally independent because the appointees are made often by the department.
But you remember, think if we go back in history, it was in 1966, I was then president of the Bronx.
Yes.
John Lindsay introduced a resolution to establish, in effect, a monitor over the police department. Right. That went to a vote, and that lost 2-1.
Badly, yes.
And that's, I think, the reason why there has been a reluctance to accept a monitoring over the police department.
I think the people's minds have changed somewhat, though, since those days. I remember very vividly how badly that went. And mentioning John Lindsay, it was really part of his leadership that kept New York City from following the examples of Watts and Detroit and Newark, where it was blow-ups. He walked the streets of the city with Lloyd Seeley, who was the highest-ranking black officer, and came to us after that, and for which we've named our library.
All right, now, what would you do today to deal with the problems that have been identified between the community and the police department, short of establishing a body to monitor the police department?
Well, I would have two recommendations. One is to give this course that we've developed, and we're now presently giving it in 50 countries around the world, called Human Dignity and the Police, What it does is puts the police in a setting where their human dignity, they discuss how their human dignity has been jeopardized or has been attacked by the department, by the public, by their peers.
And who would you give the course to?
I would give it to everybody. I would give it to everybody in the police department. I would also give a course in how to handle the emotionally disturbed. We have a special group called the Emergency Services Unit that deals with the big problems and they get this course that we've developed 15 years ago and give throughout. I would also try to give that course because it talks about how to deal with the homeless, the disturbed, the schizophrenic, the psychotic, the alcoholic, the drug addict, who's in a psychotic mode. Police are not trained to how to handle that, and I would suggest that we do training in both of those areas.
Well, how would this course, if I were a policeman, and believe me, I've been identified as a policeman because I walked the streets with John Lindsay too, and got into a lot of trouble because I'm tall and slim, and one point where there was a riot, I found myself in top of a police car, and people were throwing bricks at me. So, especially at night, it gets confusing, and I've been in very dangerous situations in some of the problem areas of the city.
Yes.
What would you do to deal with the problem of the hostility between the community and the police, especially at night and especially in the summertime?
Well, I think it's a matter of a building of trust and bridges and of community relations. The police department has made tremendous efforts and successful ones in many ways to get to know the community. It is to get to know them all winter so that by the time the summer comes, you have trust and you have a place for discussion. I would open the police department to have a meeting room where the community could come in and simply meet in the police department, and then the captain and others would get to know them. It is a matter of policing a divided society in a democracy, which I've been very much involved with in Northern Ireland. But it's true here with the diversity of New York. We have to have the people have to feel that it is their police department and that their police are identifying with the problems with them, so that it isn't just one simple thing. It's a matter of constant building of trust. And the police department has been trying very, very hard to do that.
Now, if you were the police commissioner today, and you got the report that the Attorney General Spitzer released recently, that said that a far higher percentage of blacks and Hispanics are stopped and searched than whites throughout the city, what would you do to correct that?
I take it very seriously because it's true throughout the country. It has happened, as you know, in the state police in New Jersey, alleged to have happened. It's been alleged all over the country. It's a national problem. And I think you have to then tackle it very directly and see how much of what the Attorney General is saying is true and how to change that. One way to change it is not just to give another course, in my judgment, in the police academy, but to do what the Kerner Commission called for 30 years ago, to say that every police officer should have a college degree. That degree, I would think, should be in the City University, but certainly at John Jay, we're prepared with over 10,000 students. We're moving.
Okay, let's then talk about John Jay.
Okay.
You have an unusual college at John Jay compared to the others in the City University because you have 2-year degrees, associate degrees, 4-year degrees, and you have master's and PhD. Yes. Tell us about those courses and how many students you have and how the courses are divided.
Great. Well, we have about over 10,000 students. We have the largest PhD and largest master's degree program in the United States. We were ranked #1 in criminal justice policy by U.S. News and World Report for the last 2 years. We're very pleased with that. In fact, because the rest of the list is very prestigious. Harvard came out 2nd, Princeton came out 4th, Carnegie Mellon came out 5th. So very prestigious colleges we were ranked with. And we give every course, or almost every course, in the day and in the evening, so with the same teacher and the same subject matter. So when I teach, I would teach at noon and at 6, and a policeman could come because of his shift or her shift to come to either part of the course.
So many of you students are already in law enforcement?
Yes.
And how many of them would you say?
About 20% are in law enforcement at the moment. We started out with about 100% in law enforcement. Then in open admissions in 1970, we brought in many youngsters, and you still call them the cops and the kids.
Now, I wouldn't want those watching the program to think that you only train policemen. When you talk about law enforcement, where do the graduates go into, and what areas do you train them for?
Well, the largest group go into the New York City Police Department, but many of them go into federal law enforcement. The FBI, the DEA, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, all of the federal agencies. In fact, we had a career day last week, and 220 different agencies came to recruit our students. They're eager to have our students because they're almost 60% women, and we're about 40% Hispanic, 30% black, and 30% white. So we represent the city of New York. We have students from 90 countries around the world, so that agencies seeking, law enforcement is still predominantly white and male. So that all the agencies are seeking to diversify. They're seeking to find Chinese-speaking, Russian-speaking students. So we have a lot of students who have, with many linguistic abilities, are eagerly sought after by the FBI, for instance, so that they can deal with the problems in China, in Russia, and so forth.
Okay, so if I'm watching this program and I say, hey, I would like to be a policeman, or I'd like to go into law enforcement, how would I apply to John Jay?
You would simply call 212 John Jay, and you would get a admissions counselor, and you would give the information, or if you want to go on the internet, just go to the John Jay homepage, and all the material is on the internet.
What are the admissions requirements, though?
For a bachelor's degree, you have to have an 80 high school average. For an associate degree, you have to have a 72 high school average. Now, if you have below that, and you still want to go to John Jay, you can go to one of the community colleges, which are in all the boroughs, and you can get yourself going. When you qualify and get a B average in those community colleges, you can then transfer to John Jay. But you have to go and do the work in a community college.
And it could be men or women, right?
Of course.
And what about age limits? Is there an age limit in the law enforcement?
Yes, but it's in the mid-30s at the moment. So we have many students who are in their 20s or early 30s who are still preparing to go. The New York City Police Department requires at the moment an associate degree to get in, to take the test, to apply, in fact. So they're moving in the direction. Many places, like Nassau County, require a 4-year degree. Many places in New Jersey and all over the country. There is a tremendous connection, and I believe what happens in the classroom, you asked earlier about how do you connect with the community. Well, the police who come to John Jay deal with all parts of the community in the classroom. There's many disagreements and discussions. We think that's very healthy to do it within a college setting where we expect you to have analytical, critical thinking and to criticize what you think is wrong.
Okay. We'll be back after these announcements.
You don't have to like me.
Or you can.
You don't have to run with me.
You really don't have to run away from me.
And we're not all that different.
I like good food. Good music. I want a good job.
I want my kids to live in a world
Where they are safe and loved.
And respected for who they are.
You don't have to like me.
But if you talk to me,
You might.
We can end prejudice if we talk to each other.
Call.
Tell us what you'd do.
Together we can build one America.
My guest today is Dr. Gerald Lynch, who is the president of the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is a part of the City University. One thing that surprised me in the break, you said that in order to join the police department, you have to have at least an associate degree. Is that right?
Correct.
And then when did that come into effect?
About a year and a half ago, I think 2 years ago, Howard Safer put it in as a requirement for applying, actually, to take the test.
Okay, now if I'm watching the program and I want to be in law enforcement, how do I decide whether to go for an associate degree or a 4-year degree or a master's or a PhD? What would the different degrees get me?
Right. Well, if you wanted to get into the police department, as a minimum, you could go for the associate degree and then you could take the test. But basically, everybody ultimately wants the baccalaureate degree because that's the basic college degree. So many people get the associate degree and go on for the baccalaureate degree. Or they simply transfer into the baccalaureate program once they've satisfied the minimum requirements. Then if they want to go on for higher office in these agencies, almost always now they're requiring a master's degree. And if there's a competition bet who gets chosen, it's often the man or woman who's gotten the master's
So if you want to
degree.
be the police commissioner or a high-ranking
Right.
chief of patrol, you'd be wise to take
Very,
the advanced degrees.
very wise, because they look at that very importantly.
Now, when did the PhD program come into being?
1981, and it was one of the first in the country, and it is now the largest with over 100 candidates. And we have very high requirements for entry, and we have a very good placement. All of our graduates, we have now 50 have graduated, and they've all been placed, and they all have very good jobs. It's an extremely good program. We have it with the Graduate Center. We do it with the Graduate Center here, and we feel it's the best in the country, and we get people from all over the world applying to the program, and the GRE and all the criteria show that going up every year. So we're very proud of the program.
What is the record of John Jay's graduates in terms of passing the police exam?
They do very well, but frankly, the police exam, as most people know, is very easy. It's a very, very easy exam.
No, but you have to get 98 or 99 to be appointed because so many people apply.
Right. So the higher you get, the better. And the fact that people have gotten, again, a degree gives them, in the background checks and in the psychological testing, they're used to taking tests. They're used to being asked probing questions. They're used to being put on the spot, as it were, by the teacher, so that they're able to deal better with the background checks and the psychological testing.
Well, I was once in the mock town that you have in Puerto Rico, where
Right.
policemen, Puerto Rican policemen, are trained to be policemen, and they make believe they're breaking into, somebody's breaking into a bank or a grocery store, and then they have a trial jury. Do you have that at all anywhere in John Jay here in New York?
We are going to be putting it into the new building, which you and the trustees have given us the permission to start, and the governor has supported very warmly. And we will have a mock trial and mock area. And I also know that you had a tremendous interest in that program in Garabo in Puerto Rico, and we're certainly very happy to get your support for continuing it.
Now, you also have, or is that the same thing, a police cadet program?
No, that's a different thing.
Tell me about that one.
Very exciting program, and we really hope it will thrive. It combines taking a young person who's in college and giving them training 1 day a week while they're going to college full-time.
Your college, or
Any college in CUNY, any college in the city, actually. And they then are trained to be cadets as they're going along, getting a 4-year degree, working in the summers and 1 day a week, getting a tremendous amount of training, which they don't get in the police academy. It's a much richer program. They learn CPR. They learn some foreign languages. They really are given a very enriched program. It combines education, training, and work.
So a police cadet is more likely to be able to get into the police department?
Well, they go right in. If they finish the program, they go in as a appointment. They're permitted to.
So then, if you wanted to be a policeman, you'd be wiser to join the police cadet. Now, that police cadet program gives you what, an associate degree or a 4-year degree?
4-year degree. It would be a 4-year degree to, but it has had a rocky past, Herman. There are times when it goes into the budget and comes out of the budget, goes into the budget and out of the budget. We've had tremendous support from the police department and from the city council, but somehow it doesn't get permanently fixed, and we'd love it to do.
But if you had the budget, you could have even more
Yes.
people in the police cadet program.
Correct.
And that would be useful because of the makeup of the student population.
Right.
That would ensure that over a period of time, you get more New York City residents,
Right.
and therefore more blacks and Hispanics into the police force.
Absolutely. In fact, you hit it right on the head. You must be a city resident to become a cadet. You cannot live outside the city. So that is another reason that it is a very enriched program with the multicultural part of the city. It's not a lot of people, from out of the city who commute in and then go home again.
Now tell me about some of the problems that the police department has been having, which I'm sure that you professors get involved
Right.
in. What is your reaction or the college's reaction to types of bullets that the police department and the types of guns that the police department uses. The problem that you had in the Allo case in the Bronx.
Right. Well, the answer would be that we'd have 10,000 different opinions in the student body and 700 different opinions in the faculty, because we have a very strong-willed group of people who believe very strongly on all sides. The reality is that 41 bullets that were shot in that case, of course, is a tragedy. And on the other hand, we know that there is a spontaneous reaction for police. There is it's human nature. It's adrenaline. They have to be better trained. Again, the longer the training, in my judgment, which means a 4-year degree and long training in police academy and continued training, would help. But it was a tragedy, and we would hope it wouldn't happen. But to answer your question, there are many, many different opinions on what should have happened there.
But the problem is, would training guide individuals in deciding when to fire, and would it help them if the gun fired so rapidly that there's really no discretion?
Yes. Well, I think it would help. But unfortunately, when you've got guns and you've got late at night and you've got people afraid, really, of being hurt and killed, the policemen, that is, I mean, it's a terrible situation. The physical courage that it takes to be a policeman is extraordinary. And we must always think of that, but to put themselves in the middle of the night in a hostile situation where they're scared, they have to be trained that they must still be very, very willing to wait a minute to check this out, and yet they wait too long, they can get killed themselves. So it's a very difficult situation, requiring a lot of pre-thinking and training.
Do you have courses on the kind of how police should be deployed? For example,
Yes.
whether or not there should be a street crime unit, and whether or not they should be in uniform or out of uniform?
Yes, we have courses in police patrol, the traffic function.
Well, tell me about those courses, because I think even people who are not thinking of joining the police department would be interested to know what you teach in those courses.
We cover almost every aspect of police work, from the issues of undercover, as you say, the issues of the civil rights of people, the human dignity issues, but every specific issue of riot control, planning, budgeting, computers, ComStat, violence, the history of race and violence. We study Shakespeare and Dostoevsky and the great writers to look at the issues of crime and justice. So we really touch every single question. And so if you wanted to come to John Jay to see if you got interested, you could take a course in any one of these many subjects. Some require prerequisites, and you probably have to take Criminal Justice 101, which is an overview of the whole field, and then you can take more specialized courses. But we have rape counseling courses and all sorts of issues, how to handle the emotionally disturbed, as I mentioned, homicide investigations, etc.
If you go back in the history of the police department in New York City for, say, 150 years ago,
Right.
Would you say the police was more or less sensitive to the community in those days than today?
I think today there were individuals, of course, throughout the history who were very sensitive, but the whole attitude of community policing, of respect, professionalism, of Howard Safir's effort to make the police very attuned to the community, that is a phenomenon that has only come in the 70s. Up to then, it was law enforcement, straight, and in the way back, you had an awful lot of violence, a lot of beating up of people who were different. Now, at least, the policy and the sensitivity is very clear that we are treating everybody with dignity and with their respect, and that we're making it. So I would say today, certainly the policy is there, and the vast majority of policemen are doing a superb job. But some make mistakes, and then some in the other cases were outwardly very cruel and absolutely unprofessional.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Herman.
You can reach us by email at our website, www.cunytv.cuny.edu, or write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016. We look forward to hearing from you.